Alright, hello again. This is going to be a quick mini-series on a few video compositing tools and some techniques. I'm going to show over time how to do this little animation here. And you'll notice a couple of things. First of all, there's a character here walking in the foreground. That one was done in Poser, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we'll also see how we render the foreground down here that's moving sideways, and then the whole image, the whole scene is moving as well. So there's different techniques to do that. This scene in the background that you see, this mountain canyon scene, was rendered with our ray tracer, a puppy ray. And the lens flares is done in Dog Waffle. Everything is Dog Waffle except for the character that's rendered in Poser with the Walk Designer. But you could have essentially your own 3D program to do that, whether it's Carrara or DAZ Studio or Maya or whatever 3D animation you have for a running dude or gal. We don't want to be exclusive here. Let's say we run on the abyss here, on the edge of the canyon, so we need the canyon itself to also move in the foreground a little bit faster than in the background. In fact, we could even do multiple layers for these backgrounds, and we would have to render them separately as they move. We didn't do that in this case. This is all far away, so all we cared for is to have the ground on which our jogger is stepping, to have that one appear moving in the foreground, moving from right to the left. And then he, of course, moves a little bit faster than the camera from left to right, so eventually he disappears. So the first start with this is to have a looping animation of the character himself. And as I mentioned, I did go to Poser, and here's actually the shot I rendered out. And you can see that there's actually an initial drop sequence, and then he comes back up. So we don't want that drop sequence unless you actually want to composite that into the final animation too. But what I'm particularly looking for is to have just a portion of this running looping section to extract that. Now, I could have done that in Poser and rendered just the frames I actually need, right? But let's say I'm lazy or I didn't think about it and I don't have that. Somebody gives you this video file rendered already, and you now are tasked with extracting just the portion of the animation that actually is usable for a looping run sequence. And what you can do now, let me do this here. I'm going to load that file that was saved out of Poser, and load this. It's an AVI file, and there it is. So I'm going to open that. And this interface now allows you to identify exactly where in the animation you want to start retrieving the frames. So you could go something like maybe where the knees are kind of joined right here from this starting frame. That would be frame number 21, as you see here. And then we'll set the end frame, and we can't go beyond that current frame, but we can go to the next loop where the knees are joined. Now that's not this one here yet, because we need to have two movements, right? The right foot goes forward, then it goes to the back, and then it comes back forward. So right around here is where we have the same frame as this one, or close enough. So let's go and capture that, and that basically, out of the 200 or so frames I have in total, will allow me to extract just the 29 or 30 frames that I actually want. There's 29 frames in this one. Let's see if this loops fine. And again, if you had one or two too many, you could delete the frames that are in excess of what you actually need. But essentially, we now have a looping animation, and we need to now pick this up as a custom brush where the background turns transparent. Now, if your background, I already have the background down here in the lower left, the background color is green right now. What if it was still the original white? So I'm going to right click and select it back to white. This is the way it usually is, that you have black primary color and white secondary color. You can switch the two, and you can also switch them right here. You can drag and drop them, or maybe not, but you can do the switcheroo right here. The thing is, though, we want to have the background, the secondary color, the same green, so that when we pick this up as a custom brush, it will look for that green color and turn that transparent in the custom brush. So now we could do that in two steps instead if you wanted to not worry about that quite yet. So the first technique would be this. We go to the custom brush pickup tool, make sure you're positioned on the first frame, because we will use the Alt key so that it picks the entire frame sequence here from the first one. The current one has to be the first frame if you want the whole animation to be picked up that way. All right, so let's go to the custom brush pickup tool and say we want to pick up about this much. And before you let go, use the Alt key. Press and hold the Alt key and now pick that up. So we've got that technique, of course, already explained in other tutorials. We now picked that up as a custom brush. We can store it here to manage it. We can see it. It's not not transparent though, and the film strip will show everything here, the entire sequence. And the film strip, by the way, will not show whether it's transparent or not. Only here in the single preview do you see if there's a plaid pattern appearing, like I have done earlier here in this one. So we'll see how to get to that level. So what you could do actually is to now right click on that same custom brush pickup tool in order to do the keying. That's based on the colors that are in here. So you could go key on the red or on the blue of the jeans, or of course the background, and that picks up that green color as the one to key on and turn transparent. Now once you've done that, you simply go to the brush and store and manage that one, and now you have a copy of it with the background transparent. So I've done this in 2 steps now, right? First I picked up the brush, the anim brush in this case, with the Alt key down, and then the second step was to key it, and I had to go back to that same tool with the right click. And you can see the film strip will show the frame sequence but without the plaid pattern. That's unfortunate. Maybe we can change that in the future. That would be a nice feature to actually have it transparent here as well. But the key thing is that maybe we can actually make this a little bit faster or as a different workflow, which is to actually preemptively change the background color, right? So if the background was white, here's what you do. You use the comma as a shortcut on your keyboard, and when you we need to have the keyboard focus here. So is it dot? No, it's not dot, it's comma. I thought it's comma. Hold on a second. Maybe I have a shift key lock here or something. Oh no, it's space. Well, that's the quicker color picker. But I thought there's a comma key that can also be used. Oh, maybe I need to be in this mode. You know what? I don't know. I thought we have it. Oh, I can use this one. It is comma. I don't know why my comma is not being detected right now on my key. Maybe my keyboard is going bad. So I'm going to use the color picker right here, right? But not with the left button on the mouse. I'm going to use the right button. That will allow me to pick up the color from the current image by using the right button, and I will set the secondary color. Now I can either go into a single pixel or say average 3 or 5. Now it doesn't make a difference in my case because that was a unique color rendered as the background color in Poser. So I know either one of those that I pick is not going to make a difference. Anyway, I use the right click and notice what's happening down here in the lower left when I pick it. It's now picked that green color as the secondary color. And that means that it's going to know to use that when I right click, when I left click even, when I left click to pick up the animated brush sequence here. I am on the first image and I'm going to pick it up like so. Use the Alt key now, press the Alt key and let go. And at that point it picks this up and also does the keying on that. So you can see it's now already being keyed to the green color as transparent. Let's go and store this brush right here. And there you go. You see I don't have to do another step to key it. It's already being keyed to that green color. So that's perhaps the fastest way to do it. If you practice this a little bit, that'll get you a nice workflow to go through that. And then of course the next step is to paint this guy over the background. And so I have a background here. It's much bigger than this guy image is, but this can serve as an initial view to see what it looks like when we paint it right there. Let's in fact restore the image. Let's go and where is it? Replace the existing image, right? We don't need the animation of the running dude anymore because we have it now captured in the custom brush. And so here's the image, significantly bigger than our running dude. So we can preview, enable the preview for the dude. There he is. He's going to run over the background without anything to step on right now. We'll cover the foreground that's moving in a different tutorial. But there's basically a couple of ways you can have him walk here. You can just drag from left to right, and since it's an animated brush, we loaded that walk sequence into the brush, it's going to loop through that. You can have the step distance a little bit bigger if you want bigger distances between them, or you can have it let's say smaller, down to 5 or 6, and then that way he's actually going to loop through the multiple cycles. There's just one cycle in the brush, but it's a looping cycle, so we can seamlessly go from one to the other. And in fact, you could use that to have a whole army or an armada of these guys going. Like you could have this one guy running like though, and then you could have perhaps resample it a little bit smaller. Perhaps click here. Every frame in that animated sequence is now being resampled, and then you can perhaps reduce the step even smaller, because this guy is small, so it's going to go smaller steps. And you see him punt and run here really quickly. So let's go perhaps bigger again and have him in the foreground. So now this is on a single frame, and of course what we'd like to do is to have it render across the animation. Now we don't have an animation right now here, right? So we need to turn this into an animation, this background image. Let's go load this as an animation, create an animation from the current frame, and say with that current image, and say we need 100 or so images. And now we can have this guy run across not just this current image, but the entire image, again by using the Alt key as we paint him from left to right. But it actually would be better if the background is moving also. So what we could do is perhaps first apply a little bit of a timeline shift or timeline transform. Let's go to the transform collection here. Now shift is going to wrap around. The foreground is going to show back on the other side, which is okay if it's a looping, if it's a seamless texture. Actually, let's do that. You know, let's turn the image into seamless. Let's go and free the animation first, and turn the image seamless. Make seamless, and there you go. So now, okay, we'll need to crop the top a little bit and the bottom also, but we have enough left and right that we can probably do a seamless shift without seeing too much of a wraparound or a cut as we transition from one to the next. So let's do that. Let's go and create an animation from that. Create 111 frames, because I'm lazy. I don't want to put my hand over the number 0 key. Let's go now and timeline this to what shall I call it, the shift. There is it, one more in the transform there. There is the shift. And so as I'm shifting, you can now no longer tell exactly where the transition is. I mean, you can if you look really close, but it doesn't have a sudden cut, and the sky is kind of consistently blending from the left edge to the right edge. So that's kind of neat, because you could easily do a looping animation with that as well. Now in this case, we're only going to move the sky or the background a little bit. And in fact, we might want to make it bigger too, so zoom in a little bit. So instead of the shift, let's just use the transform, where we can actually scale it in, and we can move it over and say, okay, let's start around here, and set a keyframe for that. And by the way, you can make this wider, this image here, for more granularity and detail on those frames to see where the keyframes are. And then we go to the last frame here, and we'll just move that over to the other side. And there's not a whole lot of movement because we didn't scale, we don't zoom in a whole lot, but that scale is what you can use for that. Let's keyframe that one, and now this one we want to do a linear transition, so let's make sure we go just straight line and apply that. So now we have a transform happening on this background image, and that will get us ready to actually put our running dude in front of it. So what's that look like? The background is like this, and our running dude is ready to run here. Let's go and reset the original, or close enough to the original. That one's actually bigger than the original. Let's make him a little bit smaller. Let's say something like that, 82%. Okay, so we'll have this guy run around like that, and undo that. Let's give him a little bit more step distance, something like 11. There you go. Okay. And just hold the Alt key down. So as you're holding the Alt key, and maybe you can draw on the outside of the image initially, so that you can see it's actually, with the Alt key down, it's going to shift the background. It's going to animate through the frames of the animation, right? And now as you're ready to adventure and get the dude into the scene, let's make sure we have enough leeway on the right side to get his foot totally out of the frame as well. All right, and so we'll go from here, Alt, and go. Keep the Alt key down, and this thing is just gonna go across like that. Now we want to have a marathon. All right, so let's have another one, perhaps a little bit smaller. farther away, which means that it's going to look like it's a little bit shorter distance. There you go. And then there's another one. And there's a whole army of them, right? Like lemmings, they're just going over to the abyss. Let's see one more. Let's do one more really fun little one. Something like this. And this one is gonna go tiny little feet. Going over like this. There's a whole bunch of them. And there you go. So that's one way that you can put the running dudes all over the place. There are other ways, and in fact there is the animated brush keyframer, the brush keyframer. That one we'll use in a separate tutorial, but it's really great. It's a great tool to use for that as well. So here's without the Alt key down, and undo that. U for undo. And then with the Alt key down, we actually paint all over it like so. And we are now there. So that's quick reason why we do want to use the AVI import with the ability to select the start frame and the end frame. That's really what this tutorial was all about at first. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll do a few more like on the sun, adding the lens flares to that, and also using the other techniques for drawing the character in front. And also having some floor for him to step on and synchronize the position on that with the new and enhanced brush keyframer that's coming out with version 9 very soon.